Here's my 2002 Honda S2000. I've owned this car for almost 7 years now, and all the modifications I've done to it, I believe, have made it the ultimate street to track car. So I'm going to give you guys a real quick tour of the majority of things I've done to it, and trying to keep that OEM plus look to the car and feel to the car, as well as enhancing the performance better than stock. So to start off at the front of the car, of course you have the OEM AP1 lip, recently repainted. Of course it's got tons of rock chips on it now from the track. I have hidden in there, nice stealthy look, is a Kragen oil cooler from Sakebomb Garage. It's a thermostatic oil cooler, so you can drive it on the street, and it doesn't really open full flow until the temperatures of the oil reach 200 degrees. Other than that, you know, kept it as OEM plus as possible up front. No crazy splitters, full OEM body. You'll notice the only other things in the front is the J's Racing tow hook. Kind of matches the red nicely and allows you to not put the goofy tow hook in the front, allow you to keep your OEM piece there. And the other enhancement I have on the front here is the full brake duct system. So I've took what Honda gave us as a template here and enhanced it to be functional. And right now I have a custom plate that's blocking off the air duct so that you can drive it on the street no problem. And it's a 3D printed part, and all I have to do is remove these 4 Allen heads and pop that off, and then you'll see the inlet for the air ducting to the front rotors. So this is really nice to keep the OEM plus look to the car and keep it a street and track car combo, because I leave these on for autocross. The only times I take them off is when I get to the track and you need that extra cooling. You can pop those off in less than 2 minutes on each side. So here's a look at the front when I pop the cover off. It's as easy as it is to take off. As you can see, there's the brake hose to the front passenger side. Definitely love the OEM AP1 front bumper. The OEM lip really sets it off nicely, and utilizing the factory fake grills there to make them functional. It's truly an ideal setup. As far as wheels and tires go, these are 17x9 plus 60 Enkei PF01 wheels. In the center, gave it that OEM plus look with a 3D printed center cap that I did custom with a red decal to match the car. The brakes on this car are full OEM. These are actually my street setup, red powder coated calipers with the OEM pads on it right now for street driving. You'll see back there is the hidden brake duct, as well as the Karcepts front swaybar hiding in there. All the control arms I've recently painted Pour 15, so they have 0 rust on them and they look fantastic from underneath the car. So here's a shot from underneath the car, just showing the Karcepts front swaybar and the brake ducting. Moving down along the side of the car, I have the Mega Chip USA fender guards to prevent rock chips down the side of the car, and they've really made a huge difference with this whole area right behind the tire here on this fender, reducing the amount of chips and whatnot. When you use these super sticky tires on track, they like to pick up everything just driving around the pits and whatnot and throw it alongside of the car. So that's definitely been a nice touch to the car, a nice protection. They do look really good on the car too. They don't stick out and cause any drag or anything. They still sit inside the tires, so the tires sit further out than those. The tires in the car right now are the Nankang CR1, or the new name for them is the CRS. These are a 245/40/17 on a 17x9 wheel. So they sit pretty much exactly flush with the edge of the wheel. If you did a 255 in this kind of tire, it would have a slight amount of bulge. So I went with a little bit smaller for a little bit better gear ratio and a little less roll in the turns with the tire. So as you'll notice here, the fitment is almost perfect with the OEM fenders. A lot of people comment on my videos asking me if my fenders are rolled. The answer to that is no. So that's a big thing I wanted to keep with the car, is not really rolling the fenders or modifying the body in a non-reversible way, and these fenders have not been touched. There is a tiny bit of rubbing. These tires have kind of self-clearanced themselves on the plastic fender liner in there, but other than that, I never had to touch the front or the rear fenders. As we move to the back of the car, you'll see I have the OEM side strakes on. Those came with the car. And on the rear, still 17x9 plus 60 wheel with a 245/40/17 tire. Of course, square setup on the car. Powder coated rear caliper for street driving. You'll notice I have the Ohlins shock in the rear there. That's a 10K Ohlins spring that comes on the front of the Ohlins. And then hiding back there as well is the Karcepts sway bar. Taking a quick look underneath the rear of the car, you'll see that I have brake ducts These are custom made. I have full DIYs on my channel on how I made these ducts. It's the same on each side. There's the inlet, the hose, and it goes directly to the OEM rear rotor down below. Helps keep the hub and the rotor a lot cooler than without it. I am working out a solution to put a blocking plate in front of this as well for street driving. I've noticed when you're driving on the street a lot, it can suck up leaves and whatnot and get them stuck in between the rotor and the outlet of the hosing. But it's not really a big issue, so I haven't really tackled it yet, but I have something in store for that. And finishing out this side of the car, you have the Mega Chip USA chip guards in the rear as well. It's pretty much flush with the tire and matches the camber pretty good as well. So I think that's a fantastic add-on. Moving down here, we have the Tanabe Medallion Touring exhaust. It's now called the Revel Medallion exhaust. It's, in my opinion, one of the best sounding exhausts for the S2000. I can go to any track and not have a problem with violating noise, and don't have to do any crazy exhaust modifications like everyone else. Yes, the diameter of it is pretty close to stock, so you're not really getting any power gains, but for a naturally aspirated build, you're not going to pick up a ton anyway. Quick look underneath the car, you'll notice I have the Megan rear differential mounts. It's a hardened rubber differential mount. Here's another look at the Tanabe. Fitment is beautiful, and I love the way the exhaust looks. It's not like a cannon out the back. It's a real clean, nice OEM plus look to the car. See up there as well, the black hosing for the rear brake ducts. That seems to hold up fine on the street. Nothing is hitting that or causing any damage. It does stick up higher than the lowest point of the car, so I don't think there's any issues there on either side. Taking a look up, you'll notice the CR wing mounted on the rear. And the reason I bought the CR wing is to take full advantage of the class rules for what they allow in the tuner class and the SECA STR for autocross. And it stays in tune with the OEM Plus build of this car, so it is counted as OEM Aero, and it's been holding up great. So I did buy an extra OEM rear trunk to put the CR wing on, because my OEM trunk that's VIN matching has the OEM lip spoiler, which has the holes on the side, and I didn't want any exposed holes to be visible when I put the CR wing on, so I picked up this new Formula Red trunk online and modified it to put the CR wing on myself, and I have all the OEM pieces that a CR would have, as well as custom fabricated backing plates. And you'll see here is where they push down on the body. I think the CR wing really fits this car nicely, and it definitely makes a difference on track at high speeds. I'd say above 90 miles an hour you don't notice the rear end lift like you would without it. If you want to learn more about the process of how I installed the wing on the trunk, I have a full DIY series on my channel, so check that out. So at this point I've pretty much covered everything exterior wise done to the car. There's not that much. It's real subtle changes. Enhanced the car a ton though for handling characteristics on track with wheel tire package, the Ohlins DFV suspension. Like I mentioned, I have 10K springs from the Ohlins that came on the front. I put them in the rear. I bought 2 Swift springs, which have a 12 kilogram per millimeter rating, and those are up front. Pretty much the way you see the car right now is how it's been for the last 4 years, minus the addition of the wing I did 2 winters ago. One last thing to talk about is the fitment and alignment. The front camber is sitting at about 3.7 degrees. The rear is about 2.7 degrees. I am running spoon offset lower ball joints in the front. Nothing else changed up front for geometry, no roll center correction. The height I chose to go with this, with the suspension, is just under an inch lower than stock. It's about 3/4 of an inch lower than stock, so that it doesn't really affect the OEM roll center too badly to where you need to get crazy and start adding roll center devices. So enough about the exterior. Let's talk about what I've done to the interior as well to enhance this build. Definitely wanted to stay with the OEM soft top. I love driving around this thing with the top down on the streets, so going full hard top for me was not an option. Harddog double diagonal roll bar with the high density foam padding underneath this beautifully stitched leather cover. That's all available from Harddog, and I feel like it is the absolute pinnacle of the interior. I get lots of compliments on this at the track or at car events and whatnot. It really is like a car show build looking piece, the way the leather stitching wraps around the roll bar so nicely. This double diagonal roll bar, I feel like, is such a true gem to this car. It looks so good, and it makes everything extremely functional with the OEM interior. You'll notice I spent an enormous amount of time fitting back every single OEM interior piece into the car with this double diagonal roll bar. Everything with the roll hoops is removable with all the brackets I've made inside. There's a look at one of them, but there's 6 brackets total. I think there's 3 on each side. And I can remove one of the screws since the other half is Loctited in, and split these open, and I can go in there and do whatever kind of work I need to and reassemble these with these brackets and have no gaps on the top and no glue used at all. So the OEM interior fitment back into the car is definitely something I did before I had kids. I would never have enough time to do all that trimming and cutting and refitting now, so I got it done before I had kids, and it's really one of my favorite pieces about this car. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comments. It may be the only car out there with this kind of roll bar and full interior installed. So diving into the interior further, you'll notice I have the Recaro pole position seat. This is the FIA seat, so it's a little narrower than the ABG model. I have the Recaro side protector here for getting in and out to prevent wear. Of course, you'll notice I am running the OEM 3-point belt. I don't have a harness on this car. I use the Simpson Hybrid S Hans device on track, which works with the OEM 3-point belt. OEM steering wheel with airbag is still intact. Everything with the seatbelt routing is correct and robust. You'll notice it tucks in nicely with the roll bar and the high density padding. The seat fits this car like a glove. That's how close it gets to the edge there. It gets close enough to where you can open the center console still and have full access to all interior components. You'll notice you have full access there, as well as with this double diagonal roll bar. You can raise the secret compartment all the way, and I've done all the trimming to have the secret compartment be full capability here. You'll notice down there is the harness bar, which I had welded on the roll bar when I ordered it from Harddog, and so that allows me to add a harness later on if I change the seat and whatnot, and do some more interior cutting, but I don't have the time to even pursue that right now. So being 6'3", the seat is really the only thing that saved me from hating this car, because when I first got it I couldn't see the tachometer with the factory seat when I drove, and my head was goofy high above the roll hoops and everything. So now that I'm nestled in the Recaro, even on the track, I take the bottom cushion out, and it really drops me in there nice and tucks me in, and I really feel like I'm locked in there pretty good. And speaking of removing the cushion, down there you'll notice the Greddy Emanage. That's the piggyback tune I have in this car. It's from Karcepts. It's an STR bass tune that is loaded on it right now. You'll notice it's down here underneath the seat. It's held up on rubber standoffs that are velcroed to the carpet, so there's no concerns about heat. The nice thing about having it underneath the seat is if it does rain and you're at an autocross event with the top down, it never gets wet, as well as the fact that being 6'3", I needed as much legroom as I could. I did not mount it behind the seat like everyone typically does, because the seat is all the way back mashed against the plastics and there's no room there. So having it underneath the seat has been a really good solution, and I've been very happy with it. Pretty OEM here with the addition of the DFV oil pressure gauge. Of course, there's a DIY on my channel of how I did everything step by step for that, and that really matches the interior nicely. You'll notice when I turn the headlights on, it dims as well, and it matches pretty much everything as perfect as I could have hoped for. It's an analog style readout, so you can kind of see where it is on track as opposed to focusing on a digital number. That would be a distraction to me, so that's why I went with the analog style. And everything looking good here. I love the OEM steering wheel, so I had no need to change that. Of course, without running a harness, definitely don't want to get rid of the airbag. And driving on the street with the OEM belt and airbag is ideal for sure, as well as the high density padding all around my head, wherever it could contact. Taking a look down below, I got the SRP extended gas pedal, as well as my designed S2000 heel toe helper brake pedal spacer, so I can heel toe pretty easily now at the track. I left the passenger seat stock, mainly for the variety of people I take for rides in this car, whether it be for autocross or on the track. On the passenger side of the car, there's the Element fire extinguisher for quick access. I also have a custom installed dual USB ports for charging my phone and other accessories when I'm on track. Kind of fits in that location nicely like an OEM piece. Here's a look at how the roll bar fits with the top up. Very, very tight fitment, but it fits like a glove. The beam that's behind the roll bar is touching the leather wrapping right now. So the bar is as tall as it can go and as far back as it can possibly go. So Harddog really nailed the design and holding those tolerances true when fabricating the bar. It really does fit the car the best. And I don't know how any aftermarket bar could fit any better with the OEM top. Here's a look at how tight the fitment is with the roll bar when you are starting to raise the top or put the top down. This bar here is the closest thing to the roll bar, and since I have the leather cover, it just rubs on the leather ever so slightly, but not enough to bind anything up. So it's pretty much line to line on this side, and I'll show you the other side. Same situation on the other side. It's touching the same amount on that leather cover. There's no marks or anything on the leather cover. So other than that, nothing else too crazy going on in the interior. My focus here was to make a real clean looking factory-ish build for the roll bar. The upper control arm and lower control arm are full OEM, no camber adders there. I've replaced all the bushings I could with Hardrace hardened rubber. Still running the OEM toe links, and everything has been really nice there. I haven't had any complaints or had any desire to start messing with that. I guess one other thing worth noting is I have a little GoPro mount on the center console, which comes in handy for filming on track. There's one last thing to take a look at. I think I've kind of milked everything else to death, and we'll take a look under the hood here to see the true OEM Plus build. So there's a few things to talk about here. OEM radiator, OEM heat shield down here. There's slight trimming on the side to fit the Sakebomb Kragen oil cooler. You'll see the lines pass through right there. I have the nice edge trim, same one I used in the interior right there. Takeda Intake, or AFV intake, however you want to say it. They say the stock intake makes great power, but I feel like the massive surface area of this filter has got to give it a little bit of better flow than the stock airbox, and it kind of flows nicely with everything else under the hood here. OEM radiator, I do have a coil radiator I'm going to swap in this winter to just refresh this. Never had any leaking problems with this, but car is 20 years old now, and the plastic radiators are known to potentially crack where the hose is attached to the inlets there. So I'm going to take care of that as preventative maintenance. As you see here, here's the routing for the OEM oil cooler lines. They tuck very tightly in behind the Ingalls torque damper down to the fittings that are on the oil filter sandwich plate that point straight up. The Ingalls torque damper, I would highly recommend. If you can get a replica one of it online, because they don't sell this anymore, I would highly recommend it. It's definitely needed, even in addition to engine mounts for this car. I have Hardrace engine mounts as well down there, but that wasn't enough to keep the engine to stop moving under hard loads on track. When you're turning, the shifter moves around quite a bit. So you got 2 points on the bottom and then 1 point on top to make like a triangle brace to prevent this engine from tipping back and forth when you have some serious G loads on it in the turns. Right underneath the intake, you'll see my remote located oil pressure switch for the oil pressure gauge in the car. I have the dual radium catch cans. This one's for the PCV back here. This one's for the valve cover up here. I'm going to try to come up with a solution to relocate this one. I have the LHT master cylinder brace to install still on this. That braces the master cylinder to reduce deflection under braking on track. So I need to come up with a solution. I'm thinking of designing a bracket and potentially using this tapped hole up here and a combination of this hole to prevent rotation to relocate this catch can so that I can install that no problem and not have to do any cutting. The way everything routes is pretty nice in here. Pretty OEM for most things. Nothing's really modified in that regard. I had this OEM decal replaced. These are available from Resto Tuner. If you check them out online on Facebook and Instagram, Resto Tuner makes all replica OEM decals for underneath the hood and in the interior of these 90s and 2000s era Hondas. So give them a look if you haven't checked their stuff out already. Taking a look over here, I have the Shorai 5-pound lithium battery with a nicely machined tie down from Rockstar Garage they used to sell. Don't think it's available anymore, but I'm glad I got one of the last ones because it's a really nice piece, and this thing is uber secure in the car. And it took 25 pounds out of the car with that simple mod. You'll notice I still have the OEM header in there. It's paired to the Berk 63.5mm high flow cat, and then to the 60mm Tanabe Catback exhaust. The valve cover looks nice and fresh because it's rather new. I put that on a few years ago. It's a 04-05 S2000 valve cover, so it's got the updated PCV, and I got it from Rain Hater. So I bought it from Honda, they shipped it to Rain Hater, and he modified the baffle for the oil return holes so that there's no oil consumption in the catch cans and reburning it on track. I had a huge problem with that when I first started tracking this car and getting really quick with the tire setup and suspension setup. Once I started overflowing the PCV catch can in 4 laps and then smoke screening everyone on track, I knew I had to do something. And just doing that one valve cover mod so that the oil doesn't get trapped in the top of the valve cover, and then when you let off the throttle, sucked into the PCV through vacuum. Just that one mod has completely eliminated it, and this car barely burns any oil at all anymore. So that's really it as far as underneath the hood. So it's kind of an enhanced version of stock. It's not making a ton more power than stock, but it's got to be making some more. Of course, with the Intake, high flow cat, Tanabe exhaust, and the Karcepts Emanage tune is really the only performance adders on this car. I'd imagine it picked up maybe 10 horsepower total. Not too much, because these cars with the factory tune are pretty well strung out. The main difference, I'd say, in all the mods in the tune is it has a lot more drivability down low. VTEC engages at 4,000, and the gas mileage is actually improved. So here's a look at the car with the top up. Still flows pretty well with the wing and everything. So let's talk about reliability. Well, it's pretty insane. I've never had anything break on this car at the track to where I've had to sit out the rest of the event. You know, I've been driving it hard at autocross, hard at track days, hard at time attack, and I've never had any significant failure, mechanical failure that prevented me from competing. The car just takes the abuse I give it as long as you keep oil in it. You know, one thing I forgot to mention was I do have alloy craft welded in baffle in the oil pan to prevent oil starvation. Some people say you don't even need a baffle at all. I don't know, I just did it for peace of mind. So is this the ultimate Honda S2000 street and track build? You guys let me know in the comments below. If you've been following my channel a lot though, see I've been beating on this car hard for the last 4 to 5 years with many track events up to 2021. I did take this year off to focus more on the family, but I've been enjoying this car as cruising around the streets with the same setup. Nothing has really changed with the setup in the last 4 to 5 years. It's won several autocross events, several championships, S2K Takeover 2020 Street Class, 2021 Modified Class for S2K Takeover, won a few SCCA Time Trial National Tour events. It's definitely a car that comes across as OEM looking and not a track monster when you first look at it. No massive wing on the rear, no huge front splitters, and no craziness going on. So trying to keep the soul of the S2000 as close to factory and Honda OEM-ish as I could, and also give it the enhancements it needs to be really quick on track. So if you guys are interested in seeing footage of this car being driven hard at the track, definitely check out my channel. I have some pretty good videos up of Watkins Glen, Lime Rock, New York State Safety Track, New Jersey Motorsport Park, Thunderbolt, Thompson Motor Speedway, and some other tracks, Palmer, can't remember everything else, but I have lots of good footage of it on track, showing its handling characteristics, and just how capable the car is in its current setup. So leave me a comment, guys, give the video a thumbs up, let me know what you think of the build, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks.